kind of apologize for not having meetings the last couple of months, but it's just been between grandparenting duties. I had my grandkids were down, Kim's grandkids were down, and then unfortunately had some issues up here. As I think most of you know, my retirement gig, I dabble in commercial real estate, work with a small kind of a boutique firm up here in Hartford County, I think 8 or 10 of us. And I guess it was about a month ago, one of my associates, happens to be our associate broker, wasn't feeling real well, a little congested, went to one of the local urgent care kind of places up here in Bel Air. They took some tests and immediately called an ambulance, had him transported to the local hospital, diagnosed with double lung pneumonia.
Ooh.
And his sodium levels had tanked to critically low levels. Long story short, he passed away 2 weeks ago, Saturday.
Gee.
So yeah, very, very sad. 59 years old. Very, very sad. And just so the rest of us in the office have been doing a lot of, picking up and covering for, some of the deals he was working in, things like that. And on top of that, his wife, she is the clerk of the court for Hartford County, and my Dopar Kim's boss. So we've been helping out kind of on a personal note, taking care of some things for her at the house and whatnot. So just been kind of running around a lot and not trying to make excuses here. And you guys don't need to hear all the in and out details, but needless to say, strategic planning committee at Ocean Pines has not been top of mind for me for the last few weeks, but glad to see everybody today and hope everybody's doing well. We have a guest with us today, and I'll formally introduce Connie in a minute, but before we do that, Connie Corbett from the Communications Committee, and we'll get to her in a moment. And that's actually going to be the bulk of our discussion today. I just a few moments ago finally dug up and found the minutes from our April meeting. Hopefully everybody got a chance to look at those, and if you would if you did not, please take a moment, do so now, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the April 24th meeting.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
In a second.
Hey, Rob, I thought I just saw a pop up. Someone's trying to get in. I guess John Lynch.
Oh, John, I forgot about John.
I thought I just saw something pop up and say he was trying to get into the meeting.
Forgot about John. Hey,
Sorry,
Gary.
Cut in on you like that, but
hey, Gary, you might have to walk up to the, because I don't see.
I don't know if he's trying to log in or having a problem with the link.
I don't see anything on the screen.
Okay.
It just popped up.
Where are you seeing that, John? I'm not seeing that anywhere.
It popped up and went off. It's fast. Very, very quickly. I just happened to catch it, but it looked like someone was trying to log in. Maybe I'm losing my mind. Sorry.
No. Funny, I completely forgot about John. Let me, just in case, if he was trying to log in, he should have the link. Who was first on? John, were you first on? Maybe somebody's got to be a host, because I came right in.
I came right in as well.
Jerry, were you on first?
No, I got on after John.
Oh, okay.
I think I was third.
All right. Weird.
Okay, what did I just do?
I'm not seeing anything on my end. So, well, hopefully John will get in here in a few minutes. But okay, I think we got approval on the minutes. And speaking of minutes, I forgot this. I need a minute taker today. Can I get a volunteer? Jerry, Wes, Fred, Gary, somebody want to step up?
I'll go ahead and do it. Fred.
Who said yes?
Fred.
Fred, you got it. Thanks, Fred. Appreciate that. Okay. At our last meeting, one of the things we talked about, if you guys will recall, we've did the survey, we did a summary presentation. I did a summary presentation to the board, and we talked about the need for communication in order to let the community know, because the board meeting where I presented the summary handful of residents there. I don't know how many people were online, how many people have gone back and watched it, but I think it's important that we get the word out. And we talked about connecting up with the communications committee. They were knee deep in dealing with the expo at the time, but finally were able to do that. And Fred and I had the great pleasure to meet last week with Connie Corbett from the communications committee. And we were talking about essentially, and if you look on the agenda, I used the term a report. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about here. How do we want to do this format, frequency, things of that nature. But just the idea of, okay, community, you told us X in your response to our survey. So for example, we want to see the board and the management invest in our existing amenities. Okay, well, what are we doing in that regard? So kind of report along the lines of what, based on what you told us, here's what's happening, here's what's on the drawing board, here are some things that maybe we're going to be working on in the future. And essentially that's what Fred and Connie and I were talking about. And Connie had some really good questions and some good ideas. So that's what we're going to kind of roundtable here today. That'll be the bulk conversation. So Connie, you want to just take a second and introduce yourself to the rest of the crew here?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of today's discussion. I'm Connie Corbett. I moved into Ocean Pines about 3.5 years ago with my husband. I am currently living a bifurcated life, as I indicated earlier.
Connie, that's a big word. That's a big
my
word.
office, yeah, for 9 a.m. it is. I think I've only had 1 cup of coffee, but I still go into the office in Gaithersburg, at least for the time being, for a couple of days a week, and then I spend the rest of my week there in Ocean Pines. So for me, Ocean Pines is my only and primary home. So I have spent a lot of time these past 3 years getting familiar with who is Ocean Pines as a community, and have become very much a lurker by the virtue of YouTube videos and all the recordings of committee meetings and board meetings. So although you may not see me pop up in board meetings or in various places in the community, because I may be in Montgomery County, I am learning and becoming more aware of everything that it takes to run this awesome place that we all call home. So I, about a year ago, decided to step forward and volunteer on a committee. And given my most recent background with marketing and communications, it seemed like the communication committee was a perfect fit for me. So that's kind of a nice introduction as to who I am. I am a member at large on that committee. Linda Yurchi is our chairperson, and Linda asked me if I would take the lead in talking to Rob and to Fred about how do we leverage the survey, the voice of the residents, and get some information out in a wider distribution.
Great.
Very good.
Thinking back to our conversation last week, Connie, one of the things you had asked me to do was provide you not only the most recent results, but also going 3 years back. I don't know if you had a chance to kind of look at that or not, and just maybe kind of express to the rest of the group what your thought process was there in terms of kind of seeing where we were 3 years ago, where we are now, and what the community is telling us where we need to go going forward. Is that
absolutely?
If that makes sense.
It does. I actually wrote up some notes here so I could maybe speak a little coherently at 9:11 in the morning. I did a little bit of other research, Rob and Fred, since we were together last week, just trying to, again, as an orientation to myself, to see what was out there on our website. And I was able to uncover that there was even a survey done back in 2018. So just quickly perusing that survey, which had a lot of verbatim information, plus the middle survey in 2021, and then most recently the one that we did in 2025. And there's a lot of similarities in terms of what is being voiced as concerns, or how the residents are feeling about OPA. But I want to take those learnings as voiced through the survey and contrast that against the other information that I have been collecting, as I mentioned, in my virtual attendance to board meetings and hearing the GM reports and understand the direction coming from the board of directors. And I feel that there is maybe not as explicit and intentional, but there is definitely alignment between what I'm seeing in the surveys and what I feel that the I'll call governance, for lack of another term, but how governance is moving the association forward. So as I'm looking at this request to publicize the survey results, what I keep asking myself is, why would the membership care if they're giving us a similar assessment each time we've gone out to them? And there's some variation, so I don't want to be too flip about it, but generally speaking, the themes are pretty much the same. They might be slightly prioritized difference in some of the weightings or the percentages are different, but the kind of overarching executive summary of these three surveys has a lot of similar pillars in it. So if we're going to go back out to them and say, well, here's what we've heard again, I think the question that would be asked if I were the receiver of an article like that in whatever method is, why do I care? Like, if I gave you my opinion, what I want is to understand the action. Are my ideas worthy? Are you taking action? And I know that there has been a great deal of action. I hear that at the board meeting recaps, the recordings that I listen to. So I feel like we have an opportunity with this survey not to just disseminate the statistics of what we've collected, but to match that up with more specific actions that have been taken, improvements that are there, the outcome, if there has been an outcome, and I hear a lot of good things with amenities now being self-sustaining, even absorbing depreciation and still turning a net profit. I mean, that's a fantastic story from where things were a number of years ago. So if we can marry that kind of action and impact with the survey, I feel what we have in front of us is an opportunity for kind of a branding campaign to describe that we hear you, we have your input from the voice of the residents. And we have a strategic plan, which incidentally is on the website. I think it needs to be slightly updated, but it seems to be very much in line with John Viola's recaps that he gives each month. We could match up the survey results to that strategy and show how the departments are aligned to support and address these various issues. I feel like that would be the substance then of how we write an article and how we use that information to continue to extend it into various ways that we can bring this in front of people. And I purposely say this is a campaign because I don't think it's a one-time article where you contact a reporter and get it in a newspaper and we're done. I feel like there is a kind of a theme, if you will, a campaign that is eternal, that we can take small pieces of the survey and the actions, the progress that John reports to the board, and develop, I call it snackable content, so that we can promote that in various ways, whether that's through social media or it's mentioned at the board meeting by John and he intentionally is connecting his team's results with what the community said in the strategic plan. We can use that then information also to incorporate into some of the quarterly mailings. And we could even think about having a more up-to-date progress report on the website. Our website probably could use a little bit of refreshing, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I don't think a lot of the information that's available on the website is easily discoverable. And I feel like maybe through some architecture changes or a slight intentional creation of a couple of pages, we could bring the survey with the strategic plan and the results of the work that's happening across the community and try that kind of a positive publicity promotion. Because I think we have to give ourselves as a community a lot of credit for the great stuff that is happening. Now, not everything's perfect, but you won't find a community that is perfect. And I don't want us to be concerned with trying to debate or deflect any of the negative comments. Those are going to come. But I think if we can create the feel good and the understanding of what is happening out there, that is really the power of a survey, because then people feel like they're heard, they're seeing the action, and they'll have more of a positive outlook on the community, and hopefully we start to squelch some of the negative comments that we do see on social media. That was a lot, so I apologize, but I wanted to get it out there as a story.
No, and that's it's exactly what I wanted to have you here for, Connie. So don't apologize. Thank you so much. And I think one of the things, and maybe you can expand on this a little bit or give some thoughts on this. One of the things we talked about as well, and Fred, you feel free to chime in here too. Is one of the things we've talked about. I mean, I know I've talked about it at length. Is trying to improve the synergy of all the committees, and this might be another way to, okay, we heard from the survey, this issue with respect to pools. Okay, well, let's go talk to the aquatics committee, and unfortunately, we've got Gary here, or maybe they talked something having to do with Parks and Rec. Okay, well, let's go talk to Parks and Rec. What are they hearing? What actions are they taking, and incorporate it in, so that it's not just, again, I'm using the term report, not just the strategic planning committee, but the advisory committees at large, reporting on, here's what you're telling us, here's what we're doing, here's what we're maybe planning to do going forward after, in working in concert with the board, and doing it on a regular basis, as Connie kind of pointed out. Maybe that's quarterly, and not just burying it in the plethora of communications that goes out, but kind of getting its own focus. If I may use that term, is that a fair assessment or add on to what you stated before, Connie?
I think so. I appreciate
Okay.
that recall. We did bring that up in the committee. There's a lot of ideas and thoughts that are brought forth in the survey that aren't necessarily strategic planning specific actions, not something that you would write the charging document for, but rather it may be something that's already being pursued through another committee and being considered by the board, or maybe it's been incorporated as part of the strategy and the focus for the current year budget. And I think those are the pieces where, as the kind of common recipient of this, I would feel assured that you're asking for my opinion as a homeowner, you're taking action on it, and I see progress, or you're planning for it and I see progress. And I think that's what gives that reassurance that we aren't just putting a survey out there and then not doing anything with it. In fact, I think as I mentioned before, I do believe that there is already a lot of alignment that's probably less intentional, but more because we all work together and talk, and there's activities that are happening because people understand what the priorities are. But I think if we can highlight that and magnify it in these communications, then we create that confidence. And I feel like we could also address, one of the areas that had less than great numbers on the transparency, because I think that's where people are believing that they're not getting that feedback loop, or at least that's my interpretation of the surveys.
I think one of the
Brent?
prongs I think we need to focus on here is finding out, at least I don't know, what the other dozen committees are doing and what their reaction to the board's implementation of their recommendations is. You might find, as Connie says, that there's a lot going on, and a lot of the things that have been recommended, in fact, have been implemented. But I don't know that. I mean, I don't know really what all the Aquatics Committee is doing or what the Recreation and Parks Committee is doing. And I think, Rob, you talked about better coordination with them and finding that out. And I think that's key as well, so that we can go forward, and not only with our, as Connie recommended, our communication, our strategy for going forward, but also figuring out where are we in terms of implementation of recommendations apart from this survey. And I think it would be helpful to get that group together, however that can be done.
that is something we spoke about that
Yeah.
last week,
yeah.
Fred. I think that's an excellent idea because, you know, John all by himself can't do everything. And the committees are extremely helpful for identifying and helping doing some research. And then, you know, through the vehicle of a charging document, bringing
Yeah.
some of that forward. But I think that's where we have this kind of separation between committees and
Yeah.
not a lot of understanding and sharing.
Well, at least with one committee, we're fortunate because we have, Gary, part of our committee as well as aquatics, and I'll take the initiative on that and reach out to my fellow committee chairpersons. I don't think there's anything in the bylaws that says we're only allowed to meet once a year, and just, hey, here's what we uncovered in our survey. Once we kind of have, that framework, I guess, of what we were looking at there, Connie. So this particular issue falls under, and again, I'm just using Parks and Rec as an example. So let's go talk to them. What are you guys doing? What are people telling you? Are you taking the action? Have you addressed the board? You put charging documents and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Figure out what, if any, actions, they're taking on issues that have been uncovered. Does that make sense? Is that kind of what we're thinking here? As an approach?
I think so. I think it would be beneficial.
Somebody was going to say something. I heard a voice.
I just said I agree.
Okay.
I got
Gary, go
question.
ahead. You got your hand up there, buddy.
I was off for about 10 minutes because of some difficulty on the video. Why can't the executive council group meet on more than one occasion every year? Now, we had put out recommendations that the executive council committee get together every quarter. And initially, we got a positive response from the board, but nothing's ever happened with it. So I guess, John, is that something that can be brought back up to the board? And it would be a whole lot easier if the whole group could get together like that than, have Robert or somebody on the committee try to hit each of the other committees.
So can I chime in? Excuse me, can I chime in, Rob?
That question was directed to you. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I know there had been questions. I can certainly follow back up and find out. But what I would turn it around. I'm the liaison to marine activities. Marine activities typically is always talking with environmental and rec and parks on their own. As a matter of fact, some of the members will periodically sit in those meetings because some of those topics may cross over. Let's just say, like the one that always comes up is the oyster cages. Marine activities is involved in it. Environmental. So there's nothing to say that you can't reach out and sit in on a meeting. Call someone. Look at their meeting minutes. I mean, you could be proactive as well. So you don't have to sit around and wait to a executive council meeting. Again, I'll still take that back, Gary, as a follow-up to Stuart. I know there's been some conversation, but some of these committees are already doing that. They're just doing it on their own. They're not waiting to an annual executive council meeting. Like I said, you can reach out, you can call them, you can sit in their meetings, you can look at their minutes. You can ask them questions. There's nothing that says you can't do that now.
Yeah.
So Rob, you're going to go ahead and do that. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think and as I
effort.
said, we're fortunate here. We already got Gary with Aquatics. I know, some of the other committees. I mean, I know, people on them. So, and we talked about this at our last meeting, and I just got to do it. It's just a matter of taking the initiative and getting it done. So that's on me, and I will make sure I follow up. But I think, as I said, initially, working in concert, though, is from a standpoint of constructing this communication. Connie, what would you recommend as next step on that?
I
Kind of
think.
you kind of shared with us the idea. So how do we bring that idea to fruition?
I think if it's permissible, having a connection with John Viola to align the survey results with the action plans that he has his staff doing, and making sure
Okay.
that all of the tenets of the feedback of the survey has been addressed. And if there's anything outstanding, we'll deal with those outliers, at that point in time.
Yeah.
But I think just confirming what I am feeling, and I will say it's kind of the singular opinion because I haven't really done my own research to double check
Mhm.
things, but my recall of the board meetings and the priorities that I'm hearing seem to very much align with the survey results. So
Yeah.
once we can confirm that, then we can start to work on ways to package this information. The idea about developing an article, possibly better publicizing the strategy and the action plans with the survey on a web page or a couple of web pages. Maybe working with or making suggestions through the board to John that when he's giving recaps, he's directly relating it back to feedback that we've received from the survey, so that he is helping those that are listening or present at the board meeting. He can help them make those connections. So I feel like we have to first confirm with ourselves that the survey results we've received are indeed aligning with everything that John has the team doing. And of course, that goes without saying that John's priorities align with the board's, which I have no reason to doubt or no reason to think that they don't, given the meetings that I've listened in on.
Okay, and I met with John earlier in the year, and he indicated he'd be open to sitting down with us again. So I'll see if I can get on his calendar here in the next few weeks to do just that.
And if
Rob, do we
you
want to
need to have,
focus?
sorry, go ahead, Fred.
Go
I
ahead,
was
Fred.
just, do we want to focus when you initially talked to John with, a handful of survey results, 5, not 25, some number, and maybe we can even look and see if we can line them up to make this positive going forward. Do our own assessment of what Connie's talking about and see that, okay, the board is talking about doing these 5 things or has done these 5 things, and
Yeah.
lo and
Well, I
behold,
think-
they line up.
Yeah, I mean, I think just in using the summary presentation I gave to the board, 2 months ago as a basis for a conversation.
Mhm.
Here, John, here's what we said. Here's what we heard. And as Connie said, how is it lining up with your vision, your view, your plans? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
We want to do.
I mean, I guess, I don't know how John reacts versus the board members to these sorts of things that could be considered criticisms by the residents. I mean, you've got to have a positive attitude about this. And John,
sure,
I don't
yeah.
know how you do, but I remember we had that conversation with Stuart about people were complaining about the lack of enforcement of I don't know, leaf pickup or one
Whatever. Yeah.
or another. And then Stuart says, well, then the board started doing that, and then they got criticism as if like you can't win. And I know that's frustrating, but the fact of the matter is we have to, you have to move forward with this. There's always going to be criticism. And I think we just need to keep this positive with John. And I don't know, I really don't know how he feels about that sort of issue in particular.
Well, I
Apparently
think
gets a lot of attention.
Yeah, well, keeping it, constructive, not necessarily, doesn't have to be negative. Just, hey, here's what the community's interested in, talking about, looking to you guys to take action on. How do we do that? Good, better, and different. How do we address it? What are you doing to address it? And we want to be able to report back.
I've not met John personally, although I feel I know everything about him listening to his voice on these recordings. But he always strikes me in the way he positions, talking about his team and the results. He just always seems to be very sincere and open to the feedback. So I don't get the feeling that he would take any conversation and interpret it as if it was a criticism on what his team is doing or isn't doing. I think we all have to be very honest with ourselves. There are only so many minutes in the day to do anything. And as long as it's the most important and the community feels that their prioritization is being addressed, I think that's all we can ask. There may be some things that are great ideas, but they're just not the priorities, and they have to kind of hit the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
But he always seems, unless I've mischaracterized him, he always seems to be very open and flexible with things that are coming at him. I guess probably, John, you've got a more direct relationship with him, and you can either confirm or counter that maybe we should be a little different in our approach.
Yeah, no, I would say you're spot on, Connie. A lot of the things that are talked about may already be in the works, or already in the plan. And,
Absolutely.
And John's very, very planful. I mean, he's very strategic and kind of in the way we go about our business, which is good for all of us. And yeah, it might be something. Hey, it makes the list. It's important to do sooner than later, or hey, it's going to go to the back burner and maybe get into next if it happens to be something that is, expense related. Maybe if there's expense to it, maybe it makes the next budget cycle or next budget. It just depends. But he's very strategic and planful.
Yeah.
So you're spot on your assessment there.
Right. Okay. Something that just popped into my head and kind of deviate a little bit here, but I mentioned, for example, we got Gary here who's on the aquatics committee. Looking around the room, Jerry, Wes, and I'm sorry we couldn't get John on. I know Terry's husband's on a committee. Jerry, Wes, do you guys you don't serve on any other committees, do you?
I do not. I do not.
I didn't think so. But connection wise, do you know any of your connections in the community on other committees that we could kind of leverage?
I don't know. I don't know anybody on any other committees,
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
No.
I would try to leverage where we already have relationships, take advantage of those in terms of.
Okay. Rob,
improving
I would also say just because you don't have a relationship, we can make one.
absolutely.
Obviously the liaisons can help to make intros, and I'm always about and I believe fellow directors would support this, that the more kind of collaboration, because what we don't want is, especially folks, we're all volunteers, so we don't want triplication of efforts. So if we know kind of what we're doing, something, again, I've run across it a couple of times with marine activities, is there's a similar exercise going on with environmental, or even when it became with the kayaks a couple of years ago, marine activities was involved, but Rec and Parks was kind of already further down the road. So we just want to make sure that we're respectful with everyone's time and energy. So, if there are communications or relationships that need to be kind of introduced, we should, that's kind of what it's really supposed to be about. So,
Yeah. I said, we've done a lot of, I know I personally done a lot of talking about it and never, taking the action that probably needs to be done. So, but I just wanted to see if we already had some existing ones that we can take advantage of, but you're absolutely right, John. There's, we'll reach out, and so I'll take the lead on that. So, okay. Anybody else? I mean, Jerry, West, have you guys got any comments, having heard what Connie had to say and kind of recapping the meeting that we had, Fred and I had with her? You guys got any thoughts?
The one thing that hit me as we were discussing this is it almost sounds like the survey report is a report that John would have to either write or be very heavily involved with. That is, you have some interest of the community, or maybe something the community thinks isn't exactly right, but yet we're probably already addressing it. But John's the guy, unfortunately, with all of that knowledge, and I don't know that how you put a lot more on John's plate, but that, it almost sounds to me like it's the kind of thing like, here's the report. Now I'm the head guy. I'm John. And I say,
Yeah.
okay, this is what we need. And then you write this up and, and I don't know how we can coordinate with John to make his burden less so that, we could be involved in sort of, and Connie hopefully as well, involved in putting together all of the words if we had the information about, what everything that was being done that actually, was addressing or answering, or even, things like where it's not negative things, but positive things like, let's
Yeah.
do this, let's do that. Like we got the bocce courts now, we got extra, extra stuff in the amenities, where people talked about, well, can we do more things here and there? There's a lot of positive things, as well.
And I hear what you're saying, Wes, but I think, yeah, a lot of the things that it's public information and we can just, hey, John, just confirming. I don't think we necessarily have to look at a John Viola to write for us, but just, hey, confirm. And hey, if this isn't being done, here's why. It's budgetary, as John alluded to earlier. Could be anything else. So I don't think we necessarily need him to write it, but just, we want to make sure it's in line with what is reality,
Right.
and just get him to confirm that. So, okay.
Can I just jump in here a second, Rob?
Yeah.
I think Connie's a quick study here. She's done her research, and it sounds like she has seen a lot of the same information. What I'll tell you is a lot of stuff that comes out of the strategic plan is it's around safety, it's around infrastructure, it's around. And if you go back, I went back when I ran for the board 2 years ago, and I looked at the last 8-10 years of forums, the questions that came from the community. And if you closed your eyes, almost every year, the questions were very, very similar.
Yeah.
Safety, infrastructure, it's waterfront,
Okay.
the bridges, the bulkheads. Thank you. It's a lot of the same stuff. And in that strategic plan, when you dig in, you'll see, there's so many miles of roads each year that are going to be paved. There's so many linear feet of bulkhead that's going to be done. There's so many feet of drainage ditches that are going to be. So it's a lot of that stuff. So a lot of that stuff is repeat. It's kind of, kind of rinse and repeat, right? It just keeps on going, right? But some of the new things like, do we want to have an outdoor gym facility or something like that? Some of those stuff kind of come up. They periodically come up, and they depending on the year, they'll go up and go down. But a lot of that stuff, to your point, what you guys have all figured out, a lot of that stuff's already in the plan. It's just a matter of kind of folks may come and become a little bit loud if their area isn't getting, if it's not their time for the road to be paved, and it's like, hey, you guys are due in 2027 or something, whatever that may be, right? But a lot of that, to your point, a lot of that is there. And it's just, I think to what I think we're trying to get to here is just making sure that, a lot of that stuff's communication. Yeah. Hey, we hear you. It's in the plan. Your road will be paved on Boston in 2027 or whatever it may be. But yeah, just kind of following that plan. It exists. We're following the best we can. Periodic changes could be made to it. If something happens, that becomes, a safety issue. But yeah, it's just, a lot of it's kind of sticking with that plan and helping folks understand that there is a plan for those kind of capital expense, major capital expense.
I completely agree, John. And I think it's the opportunity of using all of our communication outlets to continue to remind people that this is what you said, here's what we're doing, here's our progress, but also giving them a resource that they can then go to when they're curious. Like, I live on Clubhouse Drive. When I'm going to be paved? If you're over here on, another street and I see it happening, the first thing I said, well, when am I up? Well, if you could go to a place where this is the plan as of this date, we know things change, but here's the priority. So people are now empowered. They have that information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think you actually had said it, Connie, that sometimes you might have to dig a little bit to find one of those documents. And if you're not used to it, maybe there's just I think you said, architect, an architecture kind of hierarchy of kind of where those documents exist that people can see them, where you periodically communicate that, hey, this is happening. And there, by the way, there is a plan for it.
Yeah.
Right.
And Connie raised the issue, earlier that sometimes things are hard to find, and I don't remember what exactly the thing was, but I raised it at a meeting, a couple of meetings ago. There was something that was going on that we were talking about, and it might have been that the party there at the Memorial Park in May, and I wanted to get the details so I would know when it was going to start, what they were doing for parking, whatever it was, and I'm not 100% sure it was that thing, but I couldn't find it on the website. And I'm pretty computer savvy. I used to be a systems analyst with NASA, and I'm on this silly box, probably 6 to 8 hours a day with working, and I could not find this, this piece of information. So, to Connie's point earlier, it may be helpful to have somebody really look at that and see how easy it is for people to find things. Because, as we know, a lot of times you see things on the surveys, and because we're on the committee, we know that all that's already being done. But people are saying, well, how come we're not doing this? How come we're not doing that? But part of it is they can't find the information either. Not that everybody is going to have a computer and try to go online, unfortunately, but it's kind of a fact of life, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd also say that the info at Ocean Pines, they're extremely responsive. And, if you send something up there, that's what it was designed to do for.
Mhm.
Look, there's documentation upon documentation upon documentation, and that we have, if a quick note over there, if you can't find what you want, they're normally really responsive, or you can always call, to get that, because we do house, all of lots of documents, for sure. I just find it just easy just to, and they track how many calls, every month and kind of what they're for, whether it's, someone's asking about when their bulkhead's getting replaced, a lot of those questions. And again, I find that to be very, very, extremely responsive.
John, that's info at Ocean Pines.
Yeah, that is, info at oceanpines.org. Let me confirm that while we're talking.
Okay, thanks.
That
I've
is
used-
it, John. I send a lot of stuff there.
Is that correct? Is that the right one,
Info-
Gary? Info at
Info
oceanpines.org.
oceanpines.org.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Connie, you were going to say something a moment ago, I think.
I was just going to second that. I've used that same email address for a few questions and are very responsive. I usually get a response the same day, if
Yeah.
not, it's usually the next day.
Now, what I'll tell you is you may or may not like the answer, but you will get an answer nonetheless.
That's right. At least you know what the next step is going to be. You may
Right.
not like it, but
Okay.
Can I-
All right.
can I ask
So
you-
kind of
Can I ask one question to John, please?
go right ahead, Gary.
We're talking about communications and finding out what's going on and back and forth. Is the board supposed to answer the charging documents one way or the other back to the committee that sends them?
The charging documents will come through your liaison. They'll come to me as secretary. Not that I approve them or not, just track them. They go to John Viola, and he will normally answer if it's something that they're doing, not doing, will do, or not do. And then typically he'll send it back to the liaison, to the group, whatever committee that is.
And what do we do when we're not getting any answers?
You talk to your liaison.
Okay, but that's the person that's supposed to be getting it back to us.
That you work through your liaison for charging documents.
Okay, thank you.
John, is there any expectation of turnaround of having a response, or is it dependent upon the topic of the charging document?
Connie, I'd say probably depending on some that we get, they're already kind of, it's already in progress, or they're just flat not going to get to it. I would say if you submit one and you're not getting an answer, it's incumbent, follow up with your liaison to see, kind of where it stands.
Thank you.
All right, so here's what I'd like to kind of propose, kind of next steps. I'm thinking, hey, Fred, maybe you, me, and Connie get together again in the next week or two, and kind of after she's had the chance to go through those documents I shared with her, and let's hit what those top, 6, 8, 10, whatever it is, pieces of feedback that we heard from the survey that we want to make sure we're communicating to the community where we stand on these. From there, that'll kind of give us an idea where, okay, well, this one, I need to go talk to aquatics. This one, we need to go talk to marine activities. And then after that, we kind of have a sense of what's the message we want to communicate in that first go round, then get with John. Hey, John, here's what we got. Does this jive with your plan? Are you on board with what we're saying here? Does this make sense? Are you in agreement? Does that sound like a workable, a sensible action plan from where we are now?
I think it's an excellent idea.
Okay.
Let's get our P's and Q's together and then share it. At work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We good with that?
Yep.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
All right. Well, let's. Of course, here we are coming up on 4th of July holiday, and then and actually we'll move into to July, and I'm going to be out from the 10th of July to the 21st. So that's why I made a point to see if you guys are okay if we move the July meeting to the last. It would be the 5th Thursday, the 31st, but maybe that week after the 4th. Well, hell's bells. That's going to be tough because I'd leave on the 10th.
Yeah, the moving to the 31st would be great for me because I'm
Yeah,
already, I'm already
we'll
out of pocket on the 24th.
Yeah, so
I couldn't attend.
we'll definitely do our meeting on the, but maybe Connie, you and Fred and I can get together and do a conference call July 8th or 9th, somewhere in that time frame.
Okay.
Like
Sure,
after the 4th holiday, but before I roll out of the country on the 10th.
Sure, I'll send you a couple of times
Yeah,
that
yeah,
work for me.
and that way you'll have had a chance to kind of do some more digesting of that information, and we'll roll on from there. So again, guys, I'm open to other ideas, thoughts, how we go about this. All right. Well, I guess we're on a workable trajectory here.
Rob,
Okay,
you said
well-
the week after July 4th, we get
Yeah,
together.
like
Is that
that,
the week?
like that Monday, 7th.
Yeah,
8th,
we don't need the
somewhere
date now,
there.
but yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
I just
the three
wanna-
of us can get back together and just kind of go from where we are. And then, like I said, if we uncover, well, we need feedback from environmental committee, then we can
Mm-hmm.
go from there on that. Okay. Well, let's go around the horn. Jerry, you're top right on my screen. You got anything for the good of the group this morning?
No, just that I thank Connie for coming in.
Yes.
I'm learning a lot. She was very
Yeah.
informative. And she's a
Absolutely.
prime example of the communications, how important it is. And to overlay that, I think it's important that someone from our committee attend or at least be in touch with all the other committees in the
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
So we can give feedback, and I think that's where we need to act. But no, I'm learning a lot, and it's very informative. Thank you for having me.
Great. Thanks. Well, Jerry, thanks. Wes, what do you got? Anything?
No, I think it was a good meeting. There's always a lot of stuff to do. So
Yeah.
this sounds like a good project.
Yeah,
be-
and you know, so we've talked about it many times, and here's our opportunity to really dive into, and that is, you know, the collaboration, you know, with the other groups and making sure we're all working for the greater good.
And thank you, Connie, for coming to our meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Hey, Gary, how about you? You got anything for the group?
Not really, just thank you, Connie, and, I still hope that the board at some point decides that the executive council, can get together on more than once a year
Yeah, on a form.
But
I know, I hear what you're saying, Gary. On a formal basis.
on a formal basis.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. So, Fred, how about yourself, sir? Anything?
Nope, it's fine.
Connie, anything else?
No, I don't. Thank you.
And again, thank you so much for joining, and I thank Linda for connecting us up together. You're a great asset, and hopefully we can collaborate more.
Wonderful. I look forward to it.
Mr. Latham, John, how about you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate everyone's efforts.
Okay.
Everybody have a great 4th.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. We'll see you guys
Well-
later on the 4th.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Bye, everyone.